All right, welcome back to the Waconia Wrestling Podcast, and this is our preseason series we've been doing this season, and we've got some past podcast episodes on the off season, but we're recording this live. This is November 3rd, 2024 here, just on the eve of the youth parent meeting for our Waconia Wrestling Club, which will be tomorrow. And I've got Jake Avery joining us back again. How's it going, Jake?
It's going well.
Appreciate you joining. I want to give a little bit of a just ground us where we're at. We both got some cool backgrounds here. We're in the home base of the Catherman wrestling room here, just recently completed. So
Mine's a messy
yeah,
bedroom. It's actually not that cool. I got the camera up just high enough not to see the disaster that is. So
yeah. We're always trying to upgrade our game here relative to just the optics. But for our audience today really is, we're talking about perspectives for parents, and this is one of my favorite topics. Is actually, Jake, I think one of your favorite topics as well.
definitely.
And we're going to be diving in the next 45 minutes to an hour. So we will send this obviously to those that are joining our parent meeting, but we're hoping maybe this can be leverageable to other parents, other clubs out there. But the parent buy-in and just the parents understanding the value of this sport. We're getting more and more families every year into this sport that don't have a wrestling background, never wrestled themselves. Maybe no one in their family did, or they might have had an uncle or cousin or something like that did it. But the culture of wrestling is pretty unique, and it can be intimidating. But we want to make sure that people understand how great it is and how fun it is. And once you're hooked for life. And so that's kind of one of our pieces of what we want to do today is talk about how do you get hooked and why it's important to get hooked and how this will help your kid, most importantly, but selfishly, how this will just add joy to your family in this awesome sport of wrestling. So that's our agenda today. And Jake, I'm excited to talk about this. I think we talked about this a little bit the last time we did this, maybe a month ago. But
Yeah, we got distracted by the Olympics, though.
ran out of time and Olympics but yeah, so I think we just wanted to talk through perspectives for parents. Why this sport is can have such an impact on your family, and how it will. So, Jake, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about maybe your perspective on this? I'll add some little color of
Yeah.
mine personally, and just from what I've seen from a parent, a coach, club director, etc. Down the over the years, you've had lots of different roles yourself, and you have an interesting story of how you got into the sport in your family too.
Yeah. So I think when you were mentioning the uniqueness of wrestling, I think one thing we have to acknowledge is that it's probably the most diverse sport in that any size can do it. In basketball, you have to be 7 feet tall. In football, you have to weigh 300 pounds. In a lot of sports, you have to have like a specific type of kid to excel. In wrestling, you can be 4 feet tall, or you can be 7 feet tall. You can be 300 pounds, or you can be 100 pounds. So and then the background. Generally, it's a blue collar sport. It's across the country. You look at the traditional Rust Belt is kind of a wrestling stronghold. People that grow up in communities where the word owie doesn't carry a lot of weight. You have to have a tough family, a tough upbringing. A little bit of blood is not the worst thing. It works well in a family where it doesn't necessarily have to consume everything, but everything is kind of tied into the idea of we work hard, even when it's not always the funnest thing in the world. We find joy in struggle. We struggle together well, even if the struggle is immense. And kind of the sales pitch that a bunch of us talked about the other night is I mean, the U.S. Marine Corps sponsors the biggest wrestling tournament in the country for high schoolers, and there's a reason, right? Wrestlers make good soldiers. Wrestlers make good civil servants. Wrestlers make good teachers. They also make great businessmen and women too, who go on to be very successful. But it's just it's a lot of grit is the word people love to use a lot, kind of a catchy word. And for me personally, I grew up with some hockey friends and I was really good. We grew up across from the rink. The rink was right there. I could reach out and touch it. And I grew up all day skating, skating, skating. I was a really fast little kid on the ice rink. And first or second grade came along, and I brought home the little flyer and I handed it to mom. I said, "It's time to join organized hockey." And she took one look at all the things. And my parents were divorced when I was 2. It was very messy. We were very poor. And we might even have just been living with grandma at the time. And she looked at the flyer and read through it. Mom was working 3 jobs, and she goes, "Honey, we're gonna have a serious talk. This is not something I can support you in. I'll still get you the rollerblades for Christmas if you really want them, and you can maybe skate with your friends in the winter. But this is not an option. How about that wrestling one you got over there? Let's look at that." And it's not just the price differentiator. I mean, I work with a dude who has a kid in hockey. $25,000 is what he estimates he spends on hockey a year.
Wow.
Wrestling is not that. You can get the highest level of training for a few grand a year, and that's everything. It encompasses a world in which anybody who's willing to show up and kind of deal with the struggle, you can be a part of it. It doesn't have to be like a traveling baseball team where every weekend you're going to Alabama or Oregon. It doesn't have to be like dance where it
Oh,
takes 15 hours a week, or gymnastics. It doesn't have to be like the expensive hockey or football where you can't really get involved that much. It's like you play for a few months and then there's this long break. And if you're gonna, so it's very unique sport in that way. um, Again, for my journey, it was kind of like mom signed me up, dropped me off. I was in first or second grade. I cried the whole time. I hid by the drinking fountain. I still remember it. People would come over to check on me, which even just made me madder. And I cried the whole practice. She came back at the end, and because she had to drop me off, go to work, come back, and I was still crying. And I got in the car, and she's like, "Well, buddy, I can see that you didn't have the best time, but we're gonna commit. This is something that you need." She knew, being a single mom, and being very busy, that her son needed not just the outlet but the community. She could see the people in the room and knew many of them, and the families, and saw that there was a lot of great role models and there was a lot of great just support in that room for each other. And she's like, "Well, we're going to come back next week." And I said, "All right." And I wiped my tears and I was like, "Practice is at 6." And then the next week it did a little better and a little better. But that's kind of one of the messages we'll talk about today, is it takes time. So if you've
yeah.
got a little notebook out and you're a note taker and you're one of those diligent people and you're kind of new, and the story we're telling is something that you can relate to, and that you're a busy family, you're new to the sport, you don't have a grounded experience in it, or maybe you do, even for someone like us, right at the top of the paper, it's going to take time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a marathon, this sport, and you're one of the messages we're going to carry this year, and we've tried to in past years, is we're having a lot of parents are signing up as pre-K or kindergarten, and that's great. And they're trying. This might be one of the first sports the kid is trying, and we want to make sure folks understand that a lot of the kids maybe aren't even just physically coordinated yet, right? And so that's among our top goals, is we're trying to help build just physical coordination. We're trying to help build a love of exercise, working out, and that will come. And so give it give it at least 2 3 years is kind of
Yeah.
our sales pitch for your brand new parents out there, because the gains that they make are kind of compounded interest, right? And
Yeah.
I've seen this. I've been in this role now for almost 10 years, but my oldest started in first grade and he's now a senior, and so been doing this now for 11 years, seen a lot of it. And he did not even really start to, I would say, find success until probably didn't have a season where his wins versus losses were above 500 until probably sixth grade. But we
Mhm.
kept that faith in him in terms of like, hey, you're so fun to watch. We love watching you out there. Keep working hard. Gains will pay off. Trust the process, right? As they say, I'm an Iowa guy, but Matt Campbell, Iowa State football coach.
Sorry, you lost me there. I
Sorry.
was throwing up in my mouth.
Uh, um, he had one of the best post game speeches I've ever heard, probably like 5 years ago, where fall in love with the process. The process will pay you back. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it will. That's such an important message because in life, I think we get kind of philosophical here that it's so true in life. We have to kind of just work at something, work and work and work. Maybe you're in a job, you're paying your dues, your promotion's not coming yet, but what can you control? You can still control your effort, and those opportunities will come with enough hard work, learning, merit, etc. I mean, there's no other sport that's individual that can, in my opinion, teach a simulation of life than beyond the sport. And so that
Yeah.
retention piece to the parents is so important. It's really hard to learn all these things in 1 year of wrestling. But
Yes, it's impossible.
you still will learn a lot. Now 1 year, kids, everyone says I still always remember doing it, but put the work in, keep the faith, and success is, we're not saying everyone's going to become a state qualifier, state champion, whatever. The character that will be built from these years in this sport is just undeniable in terms of what you will become as a person. And so that's why I think, Jake, you and I and many others in our program and beyond and in the wrestling community are so passionate about this sport. And so, yeah, we're going to hopefully dive into some little details and tactics for how to do that. But
Yeah. Before you go any further, I
yeah,
kind of want to reference, you were saying, it's a marathon and looking at it in the long term, and success is gray, if a gray area, if anything, at the first couple of times. And you'd mentioned the stock market. Success is not a straight line to the right and up. I don't know if this
right,
is, the camera's inverted or not, but like, a stock, it bounces. And then there's dips and there's peaks and there's dips and there's peaks. It's very volatile. And I have a kind of a spiel here. It's, if we take a room full of 100 brand new kids, let's say there's just 100, which we're not far away from. I think we said there's 64 new families or something like that. So,
right,
and on all these kids are brand new. From the time they're that young till high school, we might lose about half, probably, for that year, that 100 brand new kids, which is okay. Attrition is part of what we do. It's not for everybody. However, of those half that are remaining, or even some of those ones that we lose, what we want to help understand is that the first time Johnny gets bumped in the nose and starts crying, if mom runs on the mat with the rag, and that's going to set us back. If the first time Johnny doesn't try, dad runs out on the mat and yells at him, that's going to set us back. If the first time Johnny doesn't do the moves right, we make him stay after and do extra because he didn't listen and yell at him, we're going to lose them. Parents are often the reason that we lose them. And it's not because of anything other than just wanting to help. But the hardest part of parenting is just go away. I mean, that sounds really rude and blunt. Reflecting back on my story when I was young, like I said, my mom had to leave. And so for that first year, she wasn't in the room. So she wasn't there to critique my mistakes. She wasn't there to try to urge me on to work harder or do better. She wasn't there to coddle me if I wasn't having fun, to come over and sit in her lap. She wasn't there when I was hurt. She wasn't there. And I had to learn to function in this world it was a strange world. It was a physical world. It was a tough world. And what it does is it creates a sense of, this is mine. And you'd mentioned it's an individual sport. It's a team sport. It's a community. Everybody practices together. You compete on a team eventually, but it's an individual sport. You are out there competing. You get your hand raised or you get pinned. You are the one that develops the ultimate sense of accountability. Number 2, write that down. Accountability. There's nothing else that a young person can do that will create as much accountability as wrestling, because there's a direct effect to everything you do as an individual on and off the wrestling mat. but it's like the idea of mom and dad being involved right away almost isn't even a good thing. We want the kid to learn to fly on their own. We want the kid to fall. We want the kid to fail. We want the kid to have their own success and then not have dad in the corner clapping for them. Like you learn to deal with the ups and downs as an individual and a really, really young person, especially. There's no other place where they can have that. And they get this sense of by the time they're 8, 9, 10, 11, it's their own. Like this belongs to me. It's not something we
Yeah.
do as a group and it's something you are all a part of, but the actual act is mine. And that is extremely powerful in a
Yeah.
young person.
That's so true. I remember when I was coming through in my role here in the program, and back in, I think it was 2016, 15, 16, 17, we had a great group of, we still do, but we had just an unparalleled group of kids at the high school level, that had achieved success. Garrett Voss, who only started wrestling in seventh grade, we've had on this podcast, became a three-time place winner, two-time state champion. Went on to be a multiple-time All-American St. Cloud State. Tyler Wagner, Cade Mueller, Tim Stapleton. Like we had these, and then after that, Max McAnally. When I remember doing, I brought Garrett, Cade, and Tyler into the youth room after their state champion, or after their season. It was probably 2015, and I, kind of prodded them on, what's their story, what's been kind of the key turning points of their success. And the common theme I heard from them was kind of that seventh, eighth, ninth grade time frame. Something clicked in them, like they wanted to be to the top. And during that time frame, they just put an extreme amount of work in the off season, or in the season, etc., doing extra stuff. But what was the catalyst of that is they wanted, it was their decision. It wasn't dad saying, you got to do this. It was, or mom, it was them. And so if we can build that passion, that desire, that love of the sport for them to realize and take just full accountability and full ownership of their path, that's the key to this. And we've seen that with a lot of our youth kids these last however many years that have stayed the course from kindergarten, to sixth grade. I'll use this example again. Joe Alger, who is one of my younger son Will's best friends. Be honest, and his parents would admit it too. Joe was not very coordinated as a kindergartner, and couldn't walk and chew bubble gum, as they say. But Joe stayed the course, from kindergarten through sixth grade. He became a starter, the varsity level. I think he won almost 25 wins last year at 114 pounds in the biggest school division in our high school wrestling, and was also a state runner up as a sixth grader. And it he and prior to that had never qualified for state in that sixth grade year. So kids matured on different timelines, versus, like a kid might be 5 years old and is, you know pinning everybody because he or she's so athletic, so physical, and just, but again, sometimes we see that continue, but it's probably more common to see kids, I think, continue to mature and grow gradually, just through consistency. So the story is stay the course, build a love of the sport, help your kids build a love of this sport, and they work hard. They love it. They embrace it. The sky is the limit, but the success doesn't always mean placings. I remember, there's a kid similar. I won't name his name, but was pretty much a goofball in youth, but I never gave up on him because I saw just he had still a lot of ability inside of him. But I'm like, I'm never my philosophy. I don't give up on any kid, regardless of where they're at. They keep coming back. We're gonna keep coaching them. And this kid, had some injuries in high school, but became one of the key factors 2 years ago in the team that placed fourth at state. Had some very important matches in the section tournament and stuff. And I mean, that all those things add up in terms of helping build a team. We've got an individual sport, but it's a team sport as well. and that's what's great. Well, for our new parents, we're hoping to we have a K3 team tournament that Neil and Brian and Matt Turek will be talking to parents about. That's a developmental team. We want to get kids that are haven't, they may not be the top in their weight class across the board, but we want to get kids exposed to that team dynamic so that they feel that aspect of the sport, which is among the most fun, I think, that we have in the sport.
Cool.
So we've touched on a couple of things, Jake, but I want to talk about just back to our parents, helping them be successful, helping them be successful to help their kids be successful. What can parents expect this first year, and what does success look like for them?
So there will be resistance. Kids are not dumb. They walk into this room, and within 30 minutes of their first practice, they understand it's a challenge. And it's going to be harder than anything they've ever done, even if they do other sports. I've had kids tell me like mountain biking was the hardest thing, or swimming, or, some other sports and that are challenging. And, with all due respect, they get into the room and they realize that, no, this is a different animal. And so there will be resistance because it's scary. Nobody likes change. The joke is, people don't like to change, and adults, and we talk about the workplace and our world and our environment. We don't like change. Well, kids don't like change either. And they get in here and they realize that what you're going to put them into will require a change, not just in their day-to-day life, because practice is a couple of days a week. There's a tournament on the weekend generally, but they also understand there's going to be a change in the identity that it takes. And that's terrifying. Nobody wants their identity changed without their consent. Like who I am and what I do with my time and how I view the world. And that's a very personal thing. And then you put them in this room, and now you have coaches telling you should work on these exercises at home, and you need to be strengthening your body, and you need to eat right, and you need to rest. As they get older, they learn what that word means. And so they start going like, well, I don't have to do all this extra stuff for basketball. Why would I want to do that? So there's going to be resistance. It's important to just kind of stay here, hear them out if they're complaining, hear them out if they have issues, hear them out if they want to work with different partners, or maybe they I don't want to go to practice, or there's too many, I don't want to do matches or whatever, hear them out. But then you remind them, a lot of parents, you hear that, the philosophy, we're going to finish what we started, which I think is a good thing. But I kind of put it like this, as a coach over the past couple of decades, I've had 100 dads and moms come to me and say, yeah, he's fighting me a lot and he's resisting. And I'm talking, a couple of months in. At first, this is going to be kind of exciting, and there's dodgeball, and the coaches in our program do a great job of making things exciting. And I think this generation, everywhere, the youth coaches are good at getting kids engaged and making it fun. But after a few months is kind of what I'm talking about here now. So again, if you're writing down notes, just understand there will be resistance. And when they come to you and they say like, well, let's just, skip tonight and watch, the Harry Potter movies we're watching, or whatever your family's doing at night. And you're going to remind them, hey, dude, you get homework every day to read, right? Do you like to do that? Not always, no. Well, you kind of fight me on mowing the yard or taking the trash out sometimes, even though we have to put our laundry away every day or whatever, right? Yeah. It's part of what makes the world go round. Of course, wrestling isn't mandatory like reading or cleaning your own house, but it's the idea of doing a tough, challenging thing that the brain initially doesn't really want to do. And the more you can make yourself do that thing, I mean, the brain science is all over, like these podcasts now are everywhere, right? There's probably one of the most popular forms of media on the planet. Newspapers are dead. Most people like myself avoid cable TV. It's like, so people listen to podcasts, and they got all these neuroscientists and life hacks and wellness people on, and they're going to tell you, if you can retrain your brain to look at a situation and say, this is going to take me 5 to 10 minutes and I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. Your brain recircuits itself to be a different version of itself. I'm not, it's clearly not a scientist, but that is out there and prevalent, and people understand it, even if they've never heard this information from somebody much smarter than myself. And it's no different for kids. If you get them in the room and they're just there going through the work that it takes to be a part of a wrestling program, and one that works very hard like ours, first they're going to resent it. They might fight it. They might, but you know what happens is you fast forward 2 years, and that version of your son or daughter is much more willing to lean into work. Doesn't mean they're going to always love to clean or read, but when they're presented with situations in their life where they're like, "Ooh, this is going to not be the funnest thing in the world," they're going to be the type of person who just says, "Well, let's just do your job. Just get out there, put a smile on, do your job." And that's what I think makes everybody innately so proud of wrestling. Because one of the beauties of wrestling, and we help kids learn this, is it makes our parents proud. It makes grandma proud, aunts proud. Everybody's proud. I've never met a family that wasn't proud of their
Yeah.
kid. We might show it in weird, disturbing ways sometimes, and we got to kind of learn how to mold that into positive energy, but not overly positive energy. If every time the kid ties their shoes, you're going, yay, that's not great either. But it's that pride in it. And I think the way we express that as parents is don't be afraid to cheat a little bit on practice day. One of the things I've tried to do with my stepsons is on practice day, we get a little break from some of the chores. Normally they come home from school, they got their homework, and they have 2 to 3 chores each. They're 5 to 10 minutes long. On practice day, I fudge that and I say, you know what, you guys got practice tonight. You're going to put a lot of work into that. I'm going to give you a little bit of a break, because the phrase we're trying to use is if you show discipline, you'll get freedom. So we're going to show the discipline later at practice by going and doing a tough, hard thing and sweating and working and maybe getting bumped in the head and then getting rewarded with dodgeball or maybe even an ice cream or whatever. But then you get the freedom of maybe only doing 1 or 2 chores. Maybe you get, 10 minutes extra in the video game. Maybe they get a couple of minutes to play with friends more, whatever. And, they get to pick their dinner. That's when it's like, hey, there's practice tonight. I'm not going to make you eat Jake's awful cooking. You can pick. Do you want me to microwave a chicken patty for you or something instead? You find these little ways to make it enjoyable. Also, make it fun for you. If it's a burden for mom and dad and the kids come home from school, everybody's yelling at each other, who's going to drive the kids to practice? And get in the car. Oh, dang it. Quit fighting about this. And your sister's man. Well, yeah, then they're not going to enjoy it either, right? Yeah. So when it leads up to practice time, make it fun. Get in the car, put the silly music on, tell the dad jokes, make it an event where it's part of helping them understand you can make a tough thing enjoyable. Yeah. And that's what the message is. That's what keeps us going. That's what makes it sustainable. Because if it's not somewhat enjoyable for you and mom and dad and grandma and grandpa also, it's never going to last.
Right. Yeah. Building in those incentives and kind of like a tradition with it is so huge.
Make it a part of your family, what your family does.
This may not be the most health conscious piece, but hey, every time we go to practice, the way home, we're going to grab a hot fudge sundae from Culver's, right? We get an ice cream cone, or something like that. Or we
like McFlurries. We like the little mini McFlurries,
Yes. Praising the effort, right? Praising things that are in their control. You can go to practice, you can work hard, these things. And I think something also this year, maybe not as many of the brand new, younger, like pre-K, kindergarten, first year kids, but one of the things that we're going to really try to preach this year as coaches is get more and more of our kids competing. And we're going to do that through a variety of things. We're going to be offering live wrestling nights on Friday nights, a handful of those across December and January, just to get kids really more comfortable, more reps, practicing live situations and kind of competing, right? And we have more novice and beginner level tournament opportunities than we've ever had, and so we will talk about that at the coaches meet at the parent meeting on Monday night. But the Chanhassen scrimmage we will do later in the year. Our home tournament in February 2nd. We're gonna have a beginner division for the first time ever. There's more beginner tournaments on the calendar as well that are all optional, but if we incentivize those, we reward those things. That's something that we're also going to, I think, really, really preach. You can do that, maybe do that at a team level, but you can do that at your family level. And just going and competing should be praised. Like, gosh, I'm so proud of you. You went out there, you tried hard. it's intimidating.
Mm.
But it doesn't have to be intimidating, because if we frame it as fun, if we frame it as this is part of the developmental process, that's how these kids are going to grow. And so I think I can kind of transition to that, to just the development process, Jake, of, we got to we getting confident in the room and building skills is number one, and being socially, I think, and also just emotionally ready to navigate this sport, number one. Some kids are just way too immature, and that's okay. But once they are ready to step out there, we should embrace it, right? And I can
So I do
remember.
want to,
Okay, yeah,
Joe. Sorry to interrupt you, Jeff. Before I forget, and if we do move on here, it says, "What does success look like?" You've got this little bubble on the screen to keep the
yeah.
guy on track.
Keep us.
If you got
For
your
me too.
notes out, meet people. You know,
Yes.
you're describing
Yeah.
this fluid environment of practice and tournaments, and some of these parents are sitting here like, we haven't even done a meeting yet. I don't know what the heck is happening. I don't understand what a tournament even means. Meet people. So at this parent thing that you're going to be at or coming to, or if you already did it and you just kind of sat there as a wallflower, shame on you. Be vulnerable, meet people, ask questions, talk to the coaches, meet the other parents. Your best guide in this whole journey is going to be the family that has 2 or 3 sons or daughters that does this sport, and they have like-minded values as you, and they do the thing, and you kind of like, well, how do you approach this, and what do we do for that, and how does this work? And you're going to have a million questions. You can always reach out to coaches, but the other families that you meet along the way are not only just part of the great reward, but that's how you get through this, is the positive energy and the knowledge that these other families have that they are glad to share with you. It's not like hockey where they're going to be like, yeah, don't send Jimmy to that skate time because that's our skate time and we're going to take that spot. The parents are going to bend over backwards to not just accommodate you, but to genuinely help your
Yes.
kid. It's amazing.
And we
So meet
won't.
people.
All the tournaments, especially for newer beginner kids, are optional. These individual tournaments, you might be on that K3 team tournament, is we're all going together, but everything else, it's optional. We are going to advertise where we're going to be going as coaches, but you can go if your best buddy family is going to a tournament that we aren't advertising, but it's on the list of available tournaments to attend. Go with them, or look for where the consensus is going. A lot of times on Facebook, we will advertise and say we're going to be going to Rockford this weekend, and so will have a couple of coaches there. Use that as an opportunity to go. And we may not be in every single corner for every single match, so there will be some. You'll be on your own a little bit, but that's it's a learning process, right? Our coaches will do their best to help help you across the mats, but they may not be at every single event. That's okay. Again, the kids, if they don't know half Nelson, they're prior to the match starting, that you're not going to be able to teach them in the corner doing this and this stuff. So that's okay.
Yelling loud enough isn't
You,
going to matter,
your
but we
role as a
yell
parent,
anyways.
yes, and there will be lots of yelling. That's part of the navigation, but you're kind of the mental morale coach. Like you're cheering on. You're saying, be aggressive, and we'll give some opportunity. Maybe another podcast opportunity. Jake, is
We could spend hours
parent.
talking about how to help your kid navigate a tournament or
Yes,
match or whatever. It's the mindset stuff. It's
yes,
it's not foreign. People have it inside them. They just have to understand what is productive in the moment and what is productive when you get home.
right, yes. And so, but kind of like quick reminders. Be aggressive, and keep working hard. Anyway, we'll go into that probably in a future episode. And that's what's great about this tool that we now have to be able to do this, because we used to try to
We
cram
can
this all into.
bore you every week with
We used
our
to try to
crazy.
we used to try to cram this into a parent meeting, and it was like an hour and a half long, and all my coaches would roll their eyes at me, Jeff, be like, hey, we got to get out of here. But that's kind of our approach now, is to do this little piecemeal. But yeah, so development in the sport. This is going to look different for each kid. Each kid is different. Each kid is going to have a different development path in terms of just we're all unique. We all have a different DNA strand, right? So there's no don't get into the trap of comparisons, right? Jake,
Mm,
it's
yeah.
very, 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 very in today's social media driven world.
Oh, it's the
When
worst.
us
Before
parents like,
Facebook, it was so much better. It was so much better. I mean, people
yeah,
were a lot easier to convince them to not worry about Jimmy's trophies and the post that you were going to put, how proud of them you are, and the whole like none of that crap really matters. It feels
right.
good to type it into the computer, but it doesn't matter. Um, so we have this saying in the coaching world, it kind of is a cynical saying, is none of it really matters till they hit puberty. It,
Yes,
it, it
so
doesn't. I
true.
mean, the
It all
roots,
resets. It all resets
the,
the
the
development
the
cycle.
roots and the groundwork we're putting into raising a healthy young person. At home, your job is to create an environment that's demanding and loving. It is taxing but relaxing. It's this balance of however your family operates. Of yes, it's going to be hard work, but that's a good thing. And then you combine that with this sport now where there's an endless well of competition. But what we forget is that it's a world of cooperation as well. And you want to remember that when they're a young person, all we're trying to do is set the roots of we have a passion for competing, a passion for doing uncomfortable things. And the sport comes over time when they can learn that. And then when they do hit puberty, you just said it, everything resets. So we have parents that have these kids that are world beaters at 6, 7, 8, 9, and they have these trophies taller than them. And those are great roots. Success is a great indicator of the fact that they're going to enjoy it for the most part, but it's not an indicator of future success. Just like we talked about the stock market, just because Apple went up yesterday doesn't mean it's going to go up today. And what happens is when kids hit puberty and the body changes and the commitment level changes and the passion for the sport changes, everything, as you said, resets. And just because little Jimmy got pinned by Stevie from St. Francis 65 times through junior level stuff, when they get to high school, there's going to be difference of results because the body changes and that matters so much. So what we do to try to help parents develop early in the sport is help educate you about exercise and physical fitness. And we don't just say getting stronger and lifting weights because it's more than that, right? If they're little people, we don't encourage heavy weightlifting, but if you want your kid to succeed, exceed, whatever word you want to use, and win a lot early on, the better athletes win. It's just like any sport. Football, better athletes win the spot. The better athletes are better in every single sport, and wrestling's no different. The mindset and the aggression. Some kids are naturally aggressive, but it's like you have that younger brother syndrome, I call it, where they just want to fight the world. They usually jump into the room and they're pretty set. A lot of times we have kids, I say 70% of the time, the kids are kind of like, ugh, and they have to learn the aggression part, and that comes as they age. So if you want to get your kid more aggressive, be patient. You don't train them by, I say, screaming into them competitiveness, because that's kind of like a fighting dog, right? The terrible analogy of you put a dog in a cage and you rattle the cage with a stick every day. Yeah, the dog's going to be, it's going to bite and scratch and crawl, but it's also going to wet itself and put its tail between its leg when it gets yelled at. So you have to understand competitiveness will come with the passion for the sport and some lumps and the realizing of I want to win now. That takes a lot of time, but if you want to help them excel early on, be athletic. And be athletic means get a ladder, one of those ladder drills. These soccer players always use them. I mean, really, you can make one out of duct tape on the garage floor with 1-foot squares and YouTube ladder drills. Have them do push-ups at night. Put a pull-up bar in the basement. Have them hang from the pull-up bar. A rope. If you have any desire to do anything exercise equipment related, a rope hanging from the ceiling 8 feet off the ground with pad below for some kids that they can climb on will do wonders for their grip strength, their upper body strength, and their core strength. They don't need weights. They don't need exercise equipment. They just need physical tools to get quicker, faster, and stronger. And the cheat code for this, and I don't want to lose anybody to them, but what I plan to do with my really little ones is put them in gymnastics because there are no greater athletes on the planet than gymnasts. I don't care what any sport says. What gymnasts do is fantastic. And if you can put them in gymnastics when they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then when they get to be the 3 years in that sport, they're going to be carved out of marble. And the whole walk and chew bubblegum thing doesn't exist in their world. Kids have strong core, they have strong
Core
abs, they
strength.
have healthy, appropriate muscle for their body type. They're not doing deadlifts at 8 years old, right? And so if you can get them
Functional.
athletically, functionally strong and send them to us, oh yeah, we teach them to win real fast.
Yeah. So many of these things we can do at home as parents. You'll learn some techniques that, and
Doing it with them.
yes, these
Doing it with
live
there's
wrestling
YouTube,
nights,
family fitness on YouTube. It's amazing.
100%. These live wrestling nights, we're going to allow parents to, assuming we don't break the capacity of the middle school room there. This is going to be first year we're trying this, but for parents to learn some of these concepts, especially if you're brand new. And a half Nelson. Have, at home, you can be laying on the floor, have your kid do a half Nelson on you, or you put a half Nelson on them, they peel it and they turn away, right? These other things like that, just kind of building your base from bottom, being in a good stance. It doesn't take a fancy wrestling mat to you can be working in your stance, and that's so important, is building those core muscles, and carrying your own weight in your stance for minutes at a time is not easy. You challenge all parents to do that, but it's a process in terms of, as the kids, we want to build self-motivation, we want to build this cool factor, and because it is cool, the concept of falling in love with working out, and working out being a good thing, right? Not just a thing I have to dread. And I think the sky is the limit if the kids become self-motivated, those middle to upper elementary school years, and like you said, then they hit their puberty, then it all starts to accelerate from there in terms of their development. That's what I've observed too, especially boys. Their brains aren't really, they might see these half Nelson,
Developed.
or
You can say
yeah,
it. You can just say
uh,
developed.
yeah. Well, I've
We're
seen it so many
knuckleheads.
times. Yeah, we've shown a half Nelson 1,000 times, but then
Yep.
they finally do it right by the time they get to 6th grade because they're paying attention to details of it or something like that, or other moves. I'm using that as an example, maybe cradle, other things. And so, stay the course, keep it fun, praise the inputs, like, and also, hey, I don't care about wins and losses as much when we're coming through youth. We do want to develop kids with a very competitive mindset. Kids that are competitive, we love. We want to continue to embrace that competitive spirit, right, Jake? Because
Mhm.
that's hard to teach, right? We can kind
So
of develop it,
one of
but
the
it's
best examples of what you're talking about, Jeff, I heard it from a dad who coached a dad of an Olympic champion. There was a Minnesota kid that just a few years ago won an Olympic gold medal, and I knew him when he was a kid and worked with him a bunch. And I know his family really well. And his dad said to me, "I never praised my kids when they won, and I never beat them up when they lost." Now he had two sons go Division One. One went on to be a multiple-time national champion Olympian, like I'm referring to, and win an Olympic gold medal. And he said we'd go to a tournament, we'd get done, and I'd say, "Great, you got first place. Proud of you, bud." And I'd hit him on the back. Now there was some colorful language because he's a colorful guy, but he said we'd get done with the tournament, and they'd say, "Hey, kid, you went 1-2. Great. Get in the car." It was the same speech. It wasn't this giant mountain of yay, we're winning, and no, we're losing. It was just like, nope, you did the work. We went to the thing. You got a result. Great. Proud of you. Get in the car.
yeah,
And
100%.
that's it. Then that's hard to find as parents. It's very hard.
Yes, I'm no saint myself. I can remember distinctly in my mind some things I said after a tournament, to my oldest, and I said something to the effect of, I can't believe you wrestled like that, and then instantly, I regret it. I'm like, that is not going to help him. So how are your comments as parents, which are so impactful? You're basically their psychological, sports psych coach, at all
Mm.
times, which is why I think we're so passionate about this, is in that we can say a lot in the practice room, but your influence on them is means so much. And so I regretted that. I apologized, and I learned that as my own lesson learned in my own development as a parent. And it's hard to be a parent and a coach, but we do our best. And as long as we own our mistakes, I think our kids will do that. We won't be perfect, but that's why we're
You
trying to
you
give
just
every
hit our next bullet point, Jeff. If you're taking notes, write down what Jeff just talked about. You will not be perfect. You will say and
yeah,
do things that you will lay in bed that night and go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that." That's okay. It happens.
yeah,
The conversation you just described afterwards, you're like, "Hey, bud, sorry. I shouldn't have went down like that. I'll be better in the future. Just understand there's things we both make changes, right?
yes.
We will not be perfect. It does not exist."
Where parents go wrong is they look at the performance of their child on a sport, but wrestling match, because it's hard, because it's not the center. You're Johnny's the center fielder of the team. The team lost.
And Johnny dropped the ball. Oh well, bud.
Yeah,
But
that was
watching
one
Johnny
play.
lay on his back and spin cartwheels in practice and wipe his boogers on people, you're gonna lose your mind. You're like, oh, just do what the coach said. It's tough. People have bad days.
Yeah, but your kid's performance should not be reflected as your worth as a parent individual. It's your kid's journey. It's their journey in the
Yes.
sport. And they will learn. At some point in time, they're going to be like, if they want to go high in the sport, they're going to have to say, you know what, I'm tired to losing, or I shouldn't have lost that match. What happened? And they're going to want to say, okay, what can I do differently? That's when
Mhm.
have them go and talk to the coaches, right? We have almost 20 coaches in this program, in our program, and there's tons of amazing coaches across the wrestling community, especially here in Minnesota. Once kids really want to, that's a sign where your kid is, they want to be great. That is a huge and very important milestone that you should embrace. And so they, but then that becomes reality where, okay, these are the things I got to improve on. It comes back to things that are in their court, like improving their technique, um, being in good position. Maybe they need to get stronger. Maybe they need to get faster. Maybe they need these things that they need to develop on their own will then go on to them. And we as parents can help and give them the resources and point it, but it's going to be on the kid's journey to do that. And so I hope we're not scaring away any of our pre-K kindergarten families, but like
Yeah, they're
it,
years away from some of
it,
these conversation.
we're
Maybe
talking
even a
about years
decade. Some of
two,
them.
2, 3, 4. Don't be
Yeah,
like to our 5-year-old Johnny and
you got to
all
get in
right,
better
let's go
position, Johnny.
let's go talk to the coach.
Well, you
We're
make a
trying.
great
That's
point, Jeff.
step one is building passion for it and fun. Then step two, as once they're in, to talk a little bit about the little stages, Jake, of
So yes,
development.
you bring up a great page of the book here. I want to make this a point. I was like of thinking of notes and things I really want to say, and again, put the paper to pen here, paper to pen to paper. Um, your anger level will never have a positive correlation to your kid's success,
Body
especially over the
language.
long term.
Body language is so
You're
important
sitting
too.
here like this
Yeah.
isn't going to make your kid care more. They might do it again. I use the analogy of dogfighting, and I know that again that's a terrible, terrible thing. But if you just beat the hell and you just browbeat them and verbally assault them and just demean them and that will never equate to long term success. It might in the short term, like you can get a kid to do a lot by yelling at them, but like the next week, the next month, the next year, it's not going to equate to success. But at the same token, constantly praising them and no, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You did great. You did great. You did. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. No, you can do better. You can be the. That
Yeah.
also doesn't. Wrestling is a harsh reality. It's like a scale. You step on it, it's going to tell you what you weigh, whether you want to hear it or not. And one of the things this sport does is it exposes your family's trouble areas. Lean into that. That again, describing my own childhood, and I know I'm going off on a tangent here, and we don't have a lot of time left. But
Be
my mom looked
self-aware.
into that
Right.
room. My mom looked into that room and she said, there are things happening here that I, as a 24-year-old single mother, 25-year-old single mother, cannot teach my son. And it's going to be scary. And we're going to have tough conversations about single parents and about divorce. And we're going to have conversations about resources and lack of experience. We're going to have these conversations. And that was an opportunity. It wasn't running away from that because it was challenging. Don't just dump it on your spouse and say, well, wrestling's your thing. No, you want to lean into the uncomfortable nature of this sport because it's going to expose over time. If mom's got anger issues, they'll come out. If dad's got flight issues, it'll come out. If grandma and grandpa are over involved or absent, I mean, that stuff will come out over time. I'm talking years from now as the process goes on. But that is a good therapeutic thing. And we need more of that in our young people in all communities across this country, of people that are willing to take the uncomfortable aspect of sports and not just look for the Facebook moment or the $5,000 team they can put them on and say, Jimmy's skating with the #1 ace, True North, whatever team from hockey. You know, it's, you have to earn it with uncomfortable moments and struggle that come over time. And it starts for our new families. Again, that was kind of a deep page turn to what comes decades from now. But for the young ones, we teach them to enjoy hard work. We teach them to enjoy a new struggle, to enjoy learning a new community of people that is a group of really tough people. And I don't mean macho tough, like, oh, I beat your kid and your kid beat my kid. And just people that do uncomfortable things. There's people that work 60 hours a week and they get their kids to practice and they do it all with a half-hearted smile. And there's people that work extremely hard, and kids that put 2-a-days and workouts in, and they put a lot into it, and they do it without demeaning other kids or looking down on other kids who don't do that. So you have to understand the toughness seeps into all aspects of the family and the family's life, but it comes in waves of years and years and years of being kind of initiated into this. So
100%. And you know, when we go to our first tournament, our first competition opportunity, it's gonna be on the surface of, we want to just, we're gonna be anxious, we're gonna be full of anxiety, we're gonna be your job. So your kids have their tasks. Your job as parents to set your kids up for success. Like, try to be that poker face, right? You know, not too high, not too low. And it's a struggle, but this is part of our development process too. And so you're going to see parents that are acting like maniacs. That's not the way. That's not the way. And unfortunately, our culture is, it's a little bit of a trend up, especially but you see that probably most at the youngest levels. As you get into the high school, the gym's quiet, almost quiet when it's a duel. The kids that are, or the parents that are yelling, you know, get the cradle, from, way back in the stands, are the
or obscenities at the referee because they're not pleased with the call.
Correct. So we as a parent sports culture need to, we have some work we need to do. And that's why, I think we're passionate about that. We're not perfect, but try to just be a little bit of a self-aware, even if you're your spouse and you're good, but your other spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend, etc., mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, maybe we just might be like, let's try to tone down. Remember what the coaches said. Let's try to be, keep it calm. What are those shirts, Jake? Like, be calm and
press on, or whatever, like the old website. Yeah, be calm. And you can't yell success into a kid in a moment, in a day, in a tournament, in a match. You can't yell it into them. You can yell at them and make them clean their room. Maybe, maybe you can get them to pick up 2 things by yelling. You're not going to get them to do and change and be different by yelling at them. You have to put the time and patience into just showing resolve, being patient, being steadfast. Just like the dad, is like, hey, you got first. Proud of you. Get in the car. Let's go get ice cream. Hey, you got last. Still proud of you. Get in the car. Yes. That's what we need.
Our unconditional love of our kids is our top priority, regardless of win-loss. And also just, I mean, let's think about it in the big picture. We keep the kids in this sport, which is our, I think, well, among our top priorities as well.
Mhm.
Um, and keeping it fun, keeping it in perspective. The long run results are going to be phenomenal. Not talk about podiums, but just who they become as a person is going to be key. So yeah. So we're about 54 minutes in here, Jake. I
Maybe you
think we
got
got
time
to.
for one more. Oh, closing thoughts. Okay.
Well, no,
So
yeah. You're. I'm gonna leave
I
it to
well,
you.
I know you
Closing
got a
thoughts.
time schedule. I'll try to respect that. So again, I kind of went to a crazy, weird place there, talking about all these, burdens and struggles, and you have to understand if you're new to this and you're listening to that and you're thinking, well, this is ridiculous. Why would I want any of this? Well, life is going to throw this at you anyways. The refrigerator blew up and there's water everywhere. Grandma showed up unannounced. The dog died. I mean, this stuff creates, and what comes out of us in those moments becomes a better version of ourselves, or a different version. I would much rather say, I guess. I don't like to use the word better, different, because it is different. My closing thought will be, my college coach was Jay Robinson. He was an Army Ranger, an Olympian, won national titles as a coach. He was a remarkable dude who did this for like 60 years, 50 years coaching. He said, look, I was an Army Ranger, which is the top whatever percent. I made $1 million in business. That was the top at the time in the 90s or whatever. A big deal. And I won national titles, and I did a lot of these things. I've seen the world. I fought in wars. I was an Olympian. He goes, but I'm not better than anybody. I'm not better coach than the guy down the street coaching the Minneapolis Youth Club. I'm not better than him, but I'm different. And it was just that resonating way that he used the idea of, you're not trying to be better. We just want to be different. And if you can embrace that idea and help your kids understand that, like, oh no, we're gonna do 10 burpees before we get on the video games. Oh no, you're gonna go, do 10 pull-ups before, or whatever. That's, well, why? It's hard. And it's not because, well, you're gonna get better. No, it's, you just want to be different. And if you can embrace the idea of embracing the struggle and the tough parts of the sport, the the rewards are amazing. It is really, really cool community of people who are very appreciative, very grateful. We talked about tournaments. Some of you newer parents are going to show up and it's going to seem intimidating. You're going to sit down next to somebody, you're going to start chatting, or say, yeah, that's my son or daughter over there, and Sally's 9, or Jimmy's 4, and blah blah blah. And then you're going to find out that this person sitting next to you might have been a world champion. Like, it's a really bizarre little world. I'm serious. Like, we've seen tournaments even in our little area where people come back and they were 4-time state champs and college national champions, and you wouldn't know because they don't look different from Jim or Steve or your plumber down the road. It's a really fascinating world where we don't pedestalize
Yeah.
the best, like LeBron James on the billboard. That is not our world. Everybody is here. You're not better. You're just different. And that is a truly remarkable gift to give to our kids at a young age.
I think that that's so great in terms of the relationships, and we will have some social events this year. It's also on our priority list of developing that community. The wrestling community that you will integrate in is unlike anything I've ever seen before. And even parents from other communities that you'll get to know might become super good friends of yours, but your kids might be competitors. That it's because there's just that
Mm.
mutual it's so hard to explain, but kids just that mutual respect that is developed. Example, Jake Deichler, who was the
Mhm.
youngest Olympian ever, Greco, what, 2008, 2004.
8.
And I
2008.
remember came to our he lives in St. Michael now. He came to our open tournament 2 years ago, and like people may not have even, and he had like a 5-year-old.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sure people
Jake's a good
didn't
dude.
no, he
A good
was,
dude.
yeah, this guy was an Olympian, and he's
Yeah.
so the
Just
wrestling
wandering around
communities.
chasing his kids, telling them to stop eating your
Yeah,
boogers like everybody else. Just a normal dude.
yeah, yeah, and you will find also among those that are the most successful long term are super great people, and that's what we want to develop. We all are competitive, but what are we doing this for? we want to become better people ourselves as parents, as coaches, etc. But we want our kids to become great people. I say this having done lots of other sports myself, soccer, track, etc. Nothing compares to this sport, and you will not regret investing time and resources and just helping your kids and your family fall in love with this sport. You will not regret it. So those are my closing thoughts.
Love it.
So Jake, we'll have to do this again sometime. Maybe when we get a little bit into the season, we'll get maybe some tournaments approaching, maybe some additional reminders. I think maybe we could bring in some other parts across our community, for maybe Coach Boss, Moyer, etc., to get their perspective. But if you got questions, don't hesitate to ask me, to ask Jake, others. We're blessed with so many resources, and great people here in Waconia and in the Minnesota wrestling community. So God bless to all. I hope everyone has a great start to the season, and it's going to be a great ride. So
Yeah, we'll see you at practice.
sounds good.